get so excited. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the next exciting edition of the Liquid Weekly podcast. I am your host, Carl Meisterheim, and with me, as always, is the in a blue t-shirt, Taylor. I like your shirt, Taylor. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, thank you. I like how on the nose this intro was in a blue
Yeah.
t-shirt.
Hey, Taylor, I don't know exactly when this episode's going to come out. I'm guessing it's going to be June-ish, maybe July, by the time people listen to this. Um, And that to me is exciting because we have the tradition here in the States at least of Christmas in July, or Christmas in June in this case. And today I really feel like we are on the nose for that because our guest today is sharing some very exciting information with us that feels like Christmas as a
It
developer,
does.
given what he's about to say. So please join me in welcoming Eytan, product director at Shopify, one of many, I'm sure, but one of the best. Welcome to the show.
Thank you guys. Great to see you, Carl. Great to see you, Taylor.
Yeah. Thanks for coming,
Excited,
man. Really
excited to
appreciate
be
it.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're jacked based on what you let loose a little bit before we join with you today. So give us just a quick little background about your work at Shopify, how you got involved there, and then we'll jump right into the goodies.
Yeah, sure. I'm a product director at Shopify. I work on our dev platform. So we're responsible for helping merchants who are building applications, third-party developers build on top of the platform to extend the capabilities. So Shopify comes with a really easy to use set of tools for basically building your commerce experience, building your commerce store, getting started with entrepreneurship. That's what we really focus on is small businesses who are getting started. And then as you grow on Shopify, you might want to extend it in various ways. And so we've got a set of developer tools that help you do that, help you create applications that where you can customize your own shop, or you can get apps from the App Store. We have over 16,000, and that's built by a very large community who's focusing on building apps for the ecosystem. And so what we think about every day is how do we make those tools easy to use, reduce friction, and also add more capability, enable them to do more with the platform to extend more parts of Shopify.
So just to help us understand where we might have seen your fingerprints thus far, give us an example of some of the products you've had direct involvement with that we might be using as developers.
Yeah, sure. So kind of starting at the very top of the journey, Shopify.dev. One of the first things I worked on when I joined about 5 years ago was like overhauling Shopify.dev, all the pixel art stuff we worked on together with our UXers and
Oh,
engineers. The Shopify CLI, which is again used to kind of to accelerate your app development, partner dashboard, the stuff we're going to talk about here, which is some of the new things we've got cooking there. Our UI components. So Polaris unit like UI components is a thing that we work on. Functions is a key platform primitive. Those are a few of the things that we work on that are the kind of core foundational building blocks. Like core foundational tooling is like one side, again, like CLI, partner dashboards is tooling, and then underlying primitives like functions, extensions, and like flow as well, are those capabilities.
So basically
wow.
all the stuff we work with all the time. So
Yeah.
so thank
Yeah.
you.
You are the personification of all the things that we love about the Shopify platform, Eitan. Thank you for all your work there. We
Awesome.
interact with you in your spirit every day, it seems like. So that's great. Now, you had some stuff specifically you wanted to bring to the show today and talk with us about. So, Taylor and Eitan, how do you guys want to go about that? 'Cause I don't want to steal your thunder.
I mean, Eton's got all the thunder, so like just go ahead and roll it out. Like
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we recently launched or released in early access our next gen dev platform, and it's kind of like what we're using as the umbrella term for a whole bunch of changes that we've made to the developer experience with better tooling and just and better capabilities. So if you kind of start at the top, one of the things that we've recognized is kind of point one is a ton of friction in the core DX of like building an application, right? So you're building an app and then you're like, okay, I want to go make a config change. Wait, oh, I have to do a deploy. Oh, I have to use tunnels. Like all those sort of things. So the first big thing we've done is really made the DX a lot faster. We've completely re-engineered the Shopify app dev command. So that's the main command that folks use probably the most, right, to go and test their work in progress. And now we've made it so you don't have to restart app dev basically ever, right? You go and make a change to your TOML file and you say, hey, I need to have some new scopes. Or you make a change and say, hey, I want to go and add like webhooks. All those things can be done, and app dev will keep running and automatically update your dev server, your dev store with all that information. So you can kind of think of it like you're kind of just like connected into a dev store, like as a remote server, fully, and all of your changes are reflected there. So way faster DX there. Also under the kind of this umbrella is Localhost, which has been out for a little bit. So we've reduced the need for tunnels in a whole bunch of use cases, which helps everybody, but also helps people who especially are on like slower internet connections, right? Where tunnels can get really costly, latency increases, and so now you can just work locally. And then also, we released as part of this kind of like theme of like better DX is unified, what we call unified dev stores. And it's unified because it aligns with all of the plans that Shopify has. So historically, let's say you wanted to like build a feature that was just for Plus, right? That was actually pretty hard. You had to become a member of the Plus program, which involves its own like red tape of like, well, look, let me verify you, Taylor, like make sure like you're okay. Now we're making it so when you create a dev store, you can create it with whatever plan you want. Basic, the Grow plan, the Advanced plan, or the Plus plan. Makes testing way easier. So that combination of re-engineered app dev, localhost, and dev stores, we think is overall just a faster DX. It makes testing way easier. So that's part
amazing.
one. I have a few parts.
That's only part one.
That's only part one.
Well, let's talk a little bit about part one, because like,
yeah, let's do it.
There's all sorts of things that I'd love to celebrate about all of this. So like, I'm primarily, Karl probably knows a little bit more, definitely knows a little bit more about the app dev, because I'm only just jumping into this, right? And I'm getting a lot of hand holding from people that I know that are in app dev, and definitely been one of the frustrations as a primarily like front end dev who's used to like, y'all have built something great. The CLI for themes is fantastic. I was one of those people who got drug away from ThemeKit, kicking and screaming, because I thought it worked great. And but no, like I love the CLI now. It works perfectly and exactly how you'd imagine everything. So the fact that it almost sounds like hot reloading, like for everything basically.
Yes.
Which is incredible. Recently getting into like functions, and me figuring out, okay, like I've got to like deploy this every time, or build this now because I've changed now my GraphQL query, and now I need these new things, and then deploying so that way I can actually like mess with it. So that all sounds like a dream from that perspective. And then unified stores, that's huge. That's been a big pain for a long time, like people being able to build plus specific stuff particularly. I know there's a couple of like kind of like quote unquote hacky ways you can kind of get mostly there, like behind dev previews, right? Like where you can kind of get some plus type features that you can test against. But that's amazing, giving everybody access to that. So I know Karl was excited about that too.
I'm very excited. Can we dig into the tunnels and the localhost stuff a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
So this is an area that is near and dear to my heart, not only because my ngrok subscription is about to renew, but also I was on and I know I need to get in the Cloudflare bandwagon, I'm just slow. I was on a flight last week, and I thought, oh, this would be a great time to get some work done, but I couldn't really do anything because even though I had Wi-Fi with the flight, they were port blocking or whatever, so I couldn't. Even my tunnels weren't working. So, what are the use cases that you haven't solved for that? Is it possible, for example, to do that sort of development with just a rudimentary Wi-Fi connection that might be blocking and filtering, or is there more support coming for that?
Yeah, Karl, it's a great call out. Like, so that was actually one of the issues with tunnels is if you worked in a larger corporate environment, sometimes tunnels are blocked because they can be used for malicious purposes. So that's actually another problem with tunnels as well, in addition to latency that we talked about. And actually, being on an airplane is a great example of latency, right? Like super high latency, multi 100 millisecond ping times just to that server. So with localhost now, with like localhost development, you can build extensions of any kind, functions of any kind, your embedded app, and do all that locally. When you save, it will have to talk to the devs to the dev store, but you're cutting out a major hop between you and the source. So in all, like we're using it internally a bunch. We're all loving it. And also like one other small thing, like you're doing some work at night. You close your laptop. The next morning you come up with tunnels. I got to restart app dev, tunnel's dead. Or even if you have a long session, right? Tunnels will sometimes cut out after N hours.
Mm-hmm.
Now you come up the next morning, your dev session is still running. It's all good. You can just keep going. So there's just like so many niceties, both like just real like latency reduction, getting blocked, but then also just not having to restart on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. So I don't know if you want to speak to this, but I'm very curious as a developer, um, how have you guys managed to implement that on your side on a technical level? Like what sort of changes did you have to make to accommodate that?
Yeah, so the biggest one, which you'll see when you run Shopify app dev, use localhost, is that we basically have self-signed certificates. So to get into like the weeds a bit, let's say you want to load an embedded app, right? An embedded app is an iframe inside of Shopify. So Shopify is loading your embedded app. Shopify itself is HTTPS. HTTPS frame can only load HTTPS resources. It can't load HTTP resources for a variety of browser security reasons. Now, we could change our policies, and we did look into that, but we didn't want to do that. So the way we've implemented technically is that it's a self-signed certificate that it's using MKcert, MakeCert, and that basically makes it run under HTTPS localhost. So now all of the assets you have, everything is running under HTTPS localhost, and that's what enables it to work.
Well, that's interesting. Thanks for that insight. You guys have really put the iframe tag to through the ringer over there at Shopify
Yeah.
throughout the years. So that's cool.
I don't. Did you want to talk more about like? I mean, unified stores is a big deal, but like I know we're
Yeah.
only in part one and we're on a clock too, so we can always swing back through some stuff as well. But anything specific on there as far as because I think that there were also with dev stores, and that's a big difference too. They have when you're testing with apps, they're more throttled more so than an actual store. Obviously that makes sense. So is any of that changing as well if we have like we're testing on like a dev plus environment as opposed to like a traditional development store?
It's a good question. Yeah. So most of the throttling, if you will, what you're referring to is that like dev stores are meant to be dev stores, right? They're not
Right.
meant to be stores that are actually transacted on.
Mhm.
And that's important because otherwise they would potentially get used for fraud and abuse and other sort
Right.
of things. Um, so that is like most of that is still generally in place. For plus dev stores from plus merchants who are using the platform, we do relax restrictions a little bit because, hey,
Mhm.
I want to go test out a new payment methodology, right? I'm building a new payment method. In order to test a new payment method, I have to actually execute a real transaction.
Yeah.
So I'd say by and large, they're still in place. We've got a couple of scenarios where we do allow some real transactions on plus stores.
Gotcha. And are just in general as far as limitations, I'm sure y'all, since this is still very early on, I don't know if there have that part's been flushed out, but as far as like limitations goes, like I can like with my partner account, I can have like one like dev plus store, I can have like five, like, is there some kind of a specific limitation like associated with that as well?
No, no limitation. So you'll be able to have as many dev stores in each plan that you need to get your testing done.
That's awesome.
Excellent. We'll find out if there's a limitation here shortly. No, I think we should move on to part two, so we
Yeah,
don't want to run out of time for all this amazing things. So,
yeah,
Eytan, what else you
yeah.
got for us in the big bag?
uh, yeah, reaching into the bag. Part two is around what we're calling declarative custom data. And so we have other things that we've done in what we call referred to as a declarative manner. What we're doing here is we are removing a lot of the toil and like burdensome, if you will, that comes with using metafields and meta objects. Today, if you want to use metafields and meta objects, whether you're actually a theme developer or an app developer, but it's really focused on app developers, you have to go and issue a set of GraphQL mutations probably after install of your app to instantiate the schema on the shop, right?
Mhm.
So like, let's say you're building an app to do testimonials, you'd have to say, okay, after this app is installed, go and like get the testimonial object schema defined on the shop via a set of GraphQL mutations. It is, and then also, let's say, imagine you do that on day one, and then on day 100, you're like, actually, I want to go add a few additional fields to my meta object for testimonials. At day one, I started with 4. Now, day 100, I have 6. Well, I have to go back to the first 100 shops and make sure that they have the new schema as well. So you kind of end up in a situation where like you have to like actually have like a data store to manage your data store. And so there's just a lot of work involved in it. It has a lot of benefits because, hey, meta objects can get used on obviously an online store. It's hosted on Shopify. So, we take care of all the hosting of data for you, but the DX and using it is hard. So we've made that a lot simpler with declarative custom data. You just go into your Shopify.app toml and you define, hey, I want this meta object with these meta fields. We have a syntax for it. You say, like, hey, this is my, name field, and it's a single line text field. This is my testimonial, and it's it's a multi-line text field, things of that nature. And then when you run Shopify app dev, those meta fields and meta objects automatically show up in the dev shop, and you're just working with them. They're just there automatically. And then when you go to deploy your app, we take care of instantiating that on every single shop on which your app is installed. So automatically taken care of for you. And then as you go and make changes to your schema, once again, as you say, go add things or even remove things, we will take care of that as well. So all of the work basically in defining the schema and getting it loaded on every shop, like completely goes away. You put in your app toml, that becomes a source of truth for the data that your app needs. And then we take care of the rest.
That's awesome.
I like it.
It's super simple too to just do it everything via toml. Like I don't know. I've liked how simple it is to work with. I mean, primarily, like I said, like extensions and some function stuff and what have you. But like having a toml file and just everything right there makes things way simpler. So now, if y'all are going to handle all the pieces in between that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah. As much as I like writing GraphQL mutations, this sounds a lot better.
Yeah, it's way easier. And it just like also it lets you focus on the core of your app. Also, like related goodies we've added there is now checkout UI extensions can access app reserved namespace meta fields, and POS has added direct API access. Right. So if you were building a POS UI extension, you want to like get meta fields or meta objects, you'd actually have to route that your request through your app's backend, right? Because the POS UI extension couldn't talk to the main API directly. So you'd have to like make a call to your backend server, which would then make it like do an authenticated call into Shopify and then return data back. A lot of work to go do that, and also very slow. This makes it way faster and way easier. We take care of the authentication for you, and that can talk directly to the main API from POS UI extensions. So we're helping to like create and make it easy to define the data, and then also easy to use the data as well.
That's awesome. Well, and I know, as I say, I'm going to keep asking about limits and everything else, and you're going to be like, oh, stop asking, man. So that I know that's one pushback with a lot of folks too, with the adoption of meta objects and meta fields for all the things, right? Well, meta objects specifically, meta fields, at least that I'm aware of, like there's no document limitations there, though I'm sure they're there somewhere. But meta fields or meta objects, I know that kind of gives some people pause. So is this something, especially since we're going to make it. Y'all are going to make it a lot easier to use meta objects.
Yes.
So I'm assuming that means maybe we're going to get maybe some higher limits there as well.
We are. So we're relaxing limits a little bit. We'll have details in the dev docs and that, but we're definitely we're working to increase, to make sure that your app has the storage it needs and to get done what it needs, and to make it as deterministic as possible. So you're like, okay, I can be confident this thing is going to work.
Mm-hmm. Nice. That's awesome.
That's really cool. What are some use cases for that folks might not be considering, or caveats that we want to be aware of in terms of the data sync, especially with metafields?
Use cases. Well, I mean, I think in terms of use cases, like, anything that your app is doing that is shop specific, right? So I talked through that use case about testimonials, right? Like, hey, I'm building an app that has testimonials. It's shop specific data. That's a great, a great use case for it. Anytime you want to go also though augment the addition, like, hey, I want to go put additional meta fields on like a resource, right? You can do that through AppToml. You're just adding meta fields. Like you're like, hey, I want this app reserve namespace and to leverage it for this resource. Like, hey, it's going to be on this resource. I'm going to have an app reserve namespace meta field. You can do that sort of thing. So like, let's say warranties, and you're like, hey, I'm going to have a warranty percent, or percent cost on it. I want to go add that on a product level. You could say, hey, this meta field is in the app reserve namespace. It's for my namespace for my app, but it's on the product resource. It can be put in there. So I think I'd say generally it's for anything that is shop scoped,
Mhm.
is where it can be leveraged.
Well, then we've
And
talked to
so,
a lot of people too. The big benefit of trying to keep it on the shop too, like anything with customer data, like you as a dev, like I don't want to be responsible for like hosting any kind of like customer data at all. So like if it just still lives with the shop, I mean, then that's just one less piece of headache there that you have to worry about.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, one more use case that came to mind, just thinking it through, is an app that I know of is using it for size charts, right?
Mhm.
So, hey, the merchant has their own kind of like bespoke size chart, uh, and they decide to store that as a meta object with all the information there, and they kind of encode the table in like a JSON field, as a meta field on the size chart meta object, and then they can reference say, hey, all this product has a reference to this meta object because it's using that size chart. So like, let's say you have like a size chart for, for tops, a size chart for bottoms, a size chart for hats. You have 3 size charts, and then each of those can be referenced from a meta field on the product.
Nice.
Yeah.
and so how are you guys implementing that? Again, I go to the back end questions, but are you basically diffing the TOML file and figuring out what changes were made and then having to calculate the GraphQL mutations to keep that in sync on your end?
Yeah, ish. So
Ish.
we under the hood, deeper. So it is a part of an app version. So every time you do a Shopify app deploy, we take what we see in the TOML file, and that is a version, like that's a new version, and then we take that version, figure out what needs to change, and then we're making all the changes on every single shop. We have like basically you could think of this. I spoke about this last year at additions.dev, but you can think of your app as a whole series of modules, right? And so like your scopes are a module, your webhook declarations in your app toml are a module. These meta fields and meta objects are also going to be a module. And then our underlying infrastructure is able to take those modules and deploy them super fast to all the shops on which your app is installed. And so that's kind of like how we chunk things up under the hood. And so this is basically like a new module that we know how to deal with.
That's amazing. And just one more clarification, you may have already covered this, forgive me, but you specifically called out when you're deploying to production stores, you need to deploy in order to have those changes take place. When you're just developing against a dev store, if you change those definitions in your TOML file, do you still need to deploy to get those updates across?
Nope. Yeah, so
Okay,
so 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 that's a part of like the re-engineered kind of app dev that
awesome.
we talked about at the top is
Mhm.
you do app dev, you hit control save, you save that TOML file, you will see it instantaneously reflected on the dev store.
Very
So
cool.
don't need to do anything. And that's like one of the really neat things again about the DX is now app dev just works throughout.
I was just curious because if forgive me for digging in the weeds, but if the paradigm is app versions in terms of when you deploy to production, the app version is kind of how you bring those modules together and put out to stores and shops. How do you handle it on the dev side where you're not specifically deploying? Is it still considered a version in the back end, like a different silent one that we don't see, or how's it
Yeah.
work?
Yeah. So behind the scenes, it's basically you can think of dev and deploy are actually unified commands. It's the same code
Hmm,
path fundamentally. It's just doing a shadow deploy to that single shop, but not a versioned one. But it's basically
Mhm.
the same code, and that actually gives you the confidence of like, hey, the thing I'm doing in dev is basically what I'm going to see on deploy because behind the scenes, those two streams have been unified.
Gotcha. That helps. Thanks for understanding. That works.
Yeah, and one breadcrumb to drop there is like that opens up us the possibility to do things like actually doing later on down the road. Hey, I just want to deploy my app to this one staging shop, right?
Mm.
Because now we can do that sort of thing. So that's for later, but it's the sort of thing that people are asking for that we're thinking about.
An update within an update. It's like
Yeah,
update inception over here. I love it. Cool.
That's amazing. I'm a fan.
So we move on to the next piece.
yeah,
Yeah, you want to talk about?
I'm getting greedy. Keep bringing
yeah.
it.
Keep bringing it. So third big change we're making is we're introducing a set of components called Polaris Unified Web Components, which is, as it says on the tin, is a set of components that are similar across all of our surfaces. So admin extensions, checkout UI extensions, customer account extensions. So now all of these surfaces are going to have a very consistent set of components, and each of those components is going to have a consistent set of props, right? When I say component here, I mean like a button, right, is a component, right? Or a table is a component. A banner, a card, these are all components. And a button might have different props to it, like a prop being like, is it active or is it inactive? Things of that nature. Is it a primary button? Is it a secondary button? And the problem that we're trying to solve here is a couple of problems we're trying to solve. First off, for folks who work on extensions and apps, what they discover as they move about Shopify is like, oh, like those are kind of similar, but not really that similar, right? And so you're just forced to really relearn every surface every time you build an extension. I see Taylor nodding his head where you're like, oh, I worked on like, Polaris app home, and now like, okay, wait, check out, like this is different enough. And so there's just a lot of mental overhead in that. Of like, okay, I got to be really careful here because the thing I learned there is not the same thing here. And then you move on to like customer account extensions, and there's more differences. So that's like one big problem we're trying to solve, is reduce the mental overhead that we think over the long term will be highly beneficial. The other thing is that problem two is that today Polaris is React, and there are a lot of React developers, which is great, but there are also a lot of developers that are like, hey, I have a simple Rails app. I'm rolling in PHP. I just want to like spit out some HTML server side and have everything work. That's not easy to do today with our components. Quite challenging. And so these are web components. They are just like basically pure HTML, CSS, and you can use them with any framework or no framework at all. And the final problem it solves is that today Polaris is a package that you install and roll up as a part of your app, right? So if you're building an app, we talked about like, hey, a size chart app, and you're using Polaris, you've got a certain version of Polaris, bundled with your app. But let's say 2 years down the road, we change the look and feel, right? We've done that before of all the components. Now you have to like go into your app, install a new package, make sure everything's working, validate everything, maybe make some changes and whatnot. The new Polaris Unified Components is delivered via CDN. And so all the components reside on Shopify. As we go and make visual changes and visual updates to the components, they'll just automatically take hold in your app because your app is going to pull from that CDN. So,
Nice.
So I think we're just making it a lot easier to build with and a lot easier to maintain with this approach. And it is more universal in terms of who can use it.
Yeah, that's huge, because there's been entire I'm thinking Polaris view components with Kirill, rocking that, so that way Rails devs don't have to spin up some React, and yeah, tons of React devs and React is great, but like there's plenty of instances where you just don't want to work with it, and so that's really really fantastic as far as like coming up with an idea where like we're just using web components. Y'all love web components over there, and that's lot more of that. A lot more of the basic building blocks of the web are making their way back in.
Yeah. I mean, I've been using these two for a little bit now, and it is really nice. It feels very old school, right? You can just go into your embedded app, and you just feel like you're writing like very simple HTML. So it's a really nice experience.
That's awesome.
So you triggered me, Eytan, with calling out Rails specifically. As you know, I have a fondness in my heart for Rails because it's what
nice.
I'd be nice. So it's what I've used professionally for most of my career after having cut my teeth on PHP and having looked at the hot mess it can be JavaScript front-end frameworks, although opinions differ. I really appreciate the work you guys are doing to continue to make Rails a first-class citizen, given so much focus has seemed to shift to React and to Next and to other JavaScript stuff. Are there other considerations that you feel you guys are making or need to make in order to make Rails devs and Rails apps still feel like they're first-class citizens in the Shopify ecosystem?
That's a good question. I mean, I think what we did here with the UI components is a big one, right? Because it was one where it's like, hey, this is clearly at odds with like, I want to build a Rails app. I think also like a lot of the work that we've done with what we call Shopify managed, right? Shopify managed webhooks, declared webhooks, now declared custom data, all the auth stuff is now Shopify managed as well. We've dramatically reduced the amount of work across like all of our templates, like that, in terms of how much folks have to do. right? Because now you can get started building an app, and actually most of the Shopify specific stuff has kind of like melted away. And if you're using like RCLI and RTOML, you can really do a lot of it. Like again, in terms of putting the burden on us. So there's no major ones that come to mind, but I don't know. I'd be curious to see what the community says of gaps that big gaps that they see remaining.
Yeah, well, you heard it there, community. Feel free to fire up those polite DMs and
Yeah,
tweet
yeah.
to Eytan. The only thing that came to mind immediately for me was just as I think to the future and like to the developer pipeline, right? A lot of the documentation and a lot of the default templates and things like that and the CLI and stuff are very focused on React and Next.js and those sort of things, which is fine. But I feel like there's a whole potential generation of Ruby and Rails developers that might interact with the Shopify ecosystem and feel pushed in a different direction because that's where the default tooling is going. Which, if that's what's best for app development, I understand that, but it just seems like an opportunity to continue to support them.
Yeah. Well, one small our default is Remix.
Remix, sorry, thank you.
No worries. Is JS framework. Yeah, I mean, I think look, we're a little biased. We think Remix is an awesome framework, and it is kind of like the lingua franca of the web. And so, like, our goal is to say, hey, there's one well lit path that we're confident will work really well, especially if you're just getting started, while still enabling and making sure, hey, if you're using Rails, you're using PHP, you're using other frameworks, that this will work. And so that's kind of like how we think about things is like, look, we're going to provide one well-lit path. So that way, if you're getting started, you can make progress incredibly quickly. But at the same time, bring whatever stack you have, and we're pretty confident that like all the tooling capabilities we have will work and work nicely.
Yeah, that's a great point you bring out. I do feel like as I've interacted with the docs and CLI, I have sensed that the one path that you guys have brought up there, and that it is helpful. So thank you for doing that.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it's nice to be able to work with when things are like web components and things like that in general too. Like everybody kind of like starts there to some degree, right? Like so whether it's Rails or PHP or whatever, you can usually work your way from there back to where you need to go. So I mean, as opposed to like React, where if you're not super comfortable with JavaScript frameworks, then you're kind of like, what the heck is this, man? Like, so it's totally different. So I would assume that would be part of the benefit there too, and the fact that it's going to be unified is very handy, because that is as a a front end dev doing some back end stuff, rocking some extensions only, checkout extensions, for merchants and stuff or whatever. Learning Polaris has been great. I love that it kind of like removes like the need to like figure out some of that design stuff, but it also kind of like you mentioned, like it's kind of fumbling through it when I'm also trying to build an app and I'm like, wait, why can't I use this here? And like, what is this now? And so that alone too will be very huge for that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it as well. I know as I've interacted with Polaris at times, I could be a little confused in terms of what's going on, but having just the straight HTML, CSS resources around to look through and kind of plunk at would be really helpful and improve my metal model for sure.
Cool.
Yeah, there's only so much stuff you can ask AI, right? Like or whatever. So where's
Yeah.
Don't even go down that road.
Which
I just think otherwise.
Where's I was gonna say where's the AI in this? Like that's the piece there where we're like, how's that tying into all this? Because I know y'all are using it like wild over there too. And
Like, so we've got a couple more things to touch on, right? So another big thing that we've done is we've augmented. So we shipped the .dev assistant last year, which was focused on GraphQL. We just shipped a few months back the .dev MCP server. So it enables you to use it in whatever coding environment you're in, Claude Code, Cursor, Claude Desktop, etc. We've now added to the MCP server functions. So you can go to, and it's also in our Dev Assistant, you can go to using the MCP server and generate complete functions. So it is pretty wild, right? You can say, hey, create for me a payment customization that will hide this payment method when the cart total is greater than $500, right? I want to hide cash on delivery, for example. It will spit out the input query for you, the actual function itself, and then show you like how it's going to work. And it's working with pretty high accuracy. So it's
That's
really
awesome.
incredible how much it cuts back on just getting going with functions to build these sort of customizations works across basically all of our function types: discounts, payment customization, delivery
Mhm.
customization, pickup points, etc. So we've added that to our MCP server. And we also have an early sneak preview of the Polaris unified web components. You can use the MCP server for that to generate some UI. That one's still
Oh.
early, because just worth noting that the Polaris unified components are in release candidate. The goal is to make them live as a part of 2025-10. So there's still some work we have to do to make it so you can generate really robust UIs. But we're really excited about that piece too being in there.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Especially
let's play that some more.
Yeah, somebody that's like I said, I literally just this past week have been like working with functions a little bit, and it's a little bit of like especially if I break something and then I'm like, oh no, now I got to go over to the merchant, like share the logs, and then I got to go like peek into the logs, try to figure out like what the heck it is, because it just gives me this big old list of stuff. And so but you know, the stores, unified dev stores and stuff like that will, I'm sure, make that part like way easier too as well, like when you're dealing with functions. So you're getting a lot more help to write the functions to get go, reducing some of the errors from, you know, people like me trying to schlep through stuff.
Yeah.
But then also being able to like use a dev store that is consistent with the kind of store that I'm trying to rock this on would be huge for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And just from my perspective, I just want to share, like, I really appreciate how far you brought functions. I remember when they were first announced, you know, they were Rust only. The support development wise was very rudimentary. And the things you've added to the CLI to make this easier, the log replays, the supporting other languages, it's just made it such a better experience. And this is like the icing on the cake, right? Where you could just program using AI to get you most of the way there and do some tweaks and you're done. It's just great.
Yeah, it's come a long way. I think the DX gotten a lot better, as you called out. Yeah, and just easier to build now for sure. So yeah, it's come a long way in 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
So
and then
what do we miss? What do we miss?
What did I miss? So one last thing we've done, like you kind of like, so we've got re-engineered DX, declarative custom data, new unified components, AI to help you learn it. And then we've wrapped all of this in a new dashboard that is designed for app builders. We're calling it the Dev Dashboard. It's been rebuilt from the ground up. It is actually a Rails app internally. Yeah.
You do love me.
Yeah. So it's an old school Rails app, if you will, or new school Rails app. But I should say it's a simple Rails app, right? It is like, you know, like really to the metal, and it's like this surface is just for app builders, right? So if you kind of think about Partners Dash, there's a lot going on there, right? Partners Dash was focused on store builders, on referrals. It even had affiliate stuff in there at one point. It had like the theme store stuff. It has app development, app store, sandbox stores. There's a tremendous amount of things going on there, which means it was doing a lot of jobs, but not doing individual jobs as well as it could have. So Dev Dashboard rebuilt from the ground up as a Rails app, and really focus on app building, all the key things you need there. So creating a new app version, monitoring to see how your app is doing, logs. We have the full logs for functions and webhooks. Yeah, and that's kind of the you know, like I said, it's wrapping paper. It makes it really beautiful, and it's fast and minimal. The other thing to note is that previously, if you were a merchant or you're like, hey, I'm a merchant selling whatever, it doesn't matter, and I want to go build an app that had the full stack, I had to go over to Partners, create a new account, sign up for that account, sign a PPA agreement. At which point they're like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm not a partner, I'm a merchant. And so now merchants are going to have the Dev Dashboard work with their existing organization and all their existing roles and permissions. So if we're working together as a team, say we're a merchant, and I was like, hey, I want to go add Karl to develop apps, I just go into like users, I give Karl the permission to develop apps, and boom, you go into Dev Dashboard and you've got it, and it just works. The full stack capabilities that our app platform brings. So we now have a unified way for merchants and partners to build apps, and like a really ergonomic experience, we think, for merchants.
That's great, because at least working with a lot of merchants where there's sometimes where we just want to test some stuff in a dev store, you know, it's, you know, I'm firing something in the partner dashboard myself or whatever, and like that's fine. But in a lot of instances, if it's just a one-off, like it's helpful if they just have that ongoing, for them. So that's really fantastic. Even outside of just like if they want to build something, a lot of
Yeah.
times just being able to test things is really fantastic for them.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, as a dev, that's an area I completely overlook most of the time. Is what would it be like for a merchant to try to do some of this stuff on their own? And you're right, all those all those things that you listed are like, oh yeah, that would be hard. That would be hard. Okay, great. So it's great that you guys have figured a way to make that unified and solve that for those use cases.
Yeah. And then also it's going to simplify the experience around because again, merchants don't have to create partner accounts, and for us, like we have one unified place to build apps for everybody.
That's awesome. Back to for the dev dashboard, is that just something that we'll end up accessing through our partner dashboard, or is that like a whole totally separate type thing?
So if you're a merchant, you're typically going to come to it from your admin, right?
Sure.
So you'll be in the admin and you'll go to the top right hand corner, like a little utility menu, and then you'll see a drop down for dev dashboard, and you'll go into it from there. If you're a partner, you'll probably initially come to it through partners, but over time, it's when we get to general availability, it'll become the thing. You're still going to do app distribution if you are a public app developer. If you're developing for the App Store, the distribution job will remain in partners, because this is focused on app building. But for a lot of folks, whether like if you are, say, doing agency work or merchants, you're going to spend the vast majority of time in CLI and DevDash.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I like that name. Is it Dev Dash the nickname?
It's a nickname we call it internally. It's in the product is Dev Dashboard.
We just call it D squared.
D squared. Yeah.
D squared.
It started here, everyone. Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, I cannot wait to get my hands on all these things and to learn more about them. Are there?
No.
Obviously, you'll have the official documentation. You'll have the press stuff that goes out. But as the guy whose heart and soul is poured into all of this stuff, is there anything else you want us to know as developers about this experience or the things that are coming that you just want to call out? Or does it cover it?
I think we covered it pretty thoroughly, right? So we talked about, again, like re-engineered DX, declarative custom data, Polaris unified web components, MCP server getting better and more capable with addition of functions, and then the new Dev Dash that kind of serves as a unified way to build apps for agencies, merchants, partners, everybody. I mean, I think we're just really excited to see how people use all this stuff. We're excited to get it to general availability for everybody. And like I think it's been a big road to get all this stuff across the finish line. And now we're just really excited to see what the community thinks.
Speaking of what the community thinks, how would you like them to let you know what they think? Is there a particular way that would be easiest for you guys to sort of get a pulse on how folks are interacting with it?
Yes. Great question, Carl. Preferred
Thanks.
way for sure is our developer community. Community.shopify.dev is for sure the best way. There's a lot of people from Shopify that are on there. I'm always checking out the boards to see what people are posting. We've got like little wayfinding from the CLI into the dev community. And it's been, we relaunched that, I don't know, it was like about 6-8 months ago. And overall, it's been great to see people utilize it to answer each other's questions, right? Like, hey, like the community helping each other out. And then also, like I said, we're on there as well, looking for any issues that we see. And so it's been a great resource, I think, all around.
Agreed. Well, is there anything else you guys wanted to make sure we touched on before we transition to the third half of the show?
I think we covered all the bases.
Have we? I mean, we could talk about this for hours, but
we could, but that's I'm watching the clock, man. That's...
I know.
Yeah.
And this is the time where normally we would talk about the change log, but we're gonna have to save that for another time, Taylor. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I know how much you look forward to that. Actually, we could just ask Eytan what's new in the change log.
This is the change log.
This is the change log.
All right. Well, I guess we'll transition to my favorite part of the show, which is the picks of the week, where we take opportunities to share something that's on top of mind for us, something interesting, so you get to know us as humans, relate to us on a personal level. So, Taylor, we'll give Eytan a moment here to think about what's coming. What would you like to share for yours? Is there
Yeah, my pick this week, I'll go first so no one else takes it. Maybe is this external hard drive. If it's probably like a generic thing. Like you probably don't need necessarily that one, but like if you're a dev and you store a bunch of stuff on your laptop and you got the terabyte or whatever hard drive and you thought that would be plenty, and then all of a sudden you start
Yeah.
recording 4K video for stuff like the podcast, and then your laptop all of a sudden starts barking at you for running out of space. So I recently had to like dig this thing out. I hadn't pulled it out for a while and had to move all this stuff off. It was very handy to have and nice to not have to just get rid of stuff. And so they're so affordable now too. It's wild. Just like a little terabyte thing that you can just carry around your backpack and call it good. So big fan. That's my pick because it saved me from having to delete a bunch of Liquid Weekly stuff off my laptop.
That's a great pick. External hard drive. Welcome to 2002, Taylor. It's a really good. If you want to borrow my zip drive, you're welcome to do that someday.
You remember how like it used to be like it was like they're like
No,
this big, but it was like 256 kilobytes or something ridiculous, kind of type thing. So it's wild.
Well, the flash drives are worth that too, because then you avoid all the issues with vibration and having to plug it in and all that kind of stuff. So, good call.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. Eytan, do you have yours, or do you need a moment to think?
I've got mine. It's kind of like an evergreen one, but it kind of comes up a good amount. So mine is like Ubiquiti networking gear.
Yes.
So Ubiquiti makes like SMB sort of networking gear, but it's also awesome if you're like a home enthusiast. And so I recently upgraded. I've been adding a bunch of access points in the house, make sure there's really good Wi-Fi. My kids make fun of me because they're like, "Here goes Dad again, putting in more access points." But then they thank me when they're like, "Oh, look,
I was gonna say, but then,
yeah. Then so I upgraded to the Dream Machine SE for like the core gateway router, which was like questionably necessary. But I was like, I'm gonna have some fun. And so that it's been great. And I love having hardwired connections for things like this, right? When it's like, so yeah, combo of like lots of hardwired connections on the house plus access points, makes me feel good. And
it's
and
the
people,
best of both worlds. It does, yeah.
And people do appreciate it.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Well, and the nice thing about those, because their access points, they support power over Ethernet, right?
Yes.
So it's just like a single cable run, like, and they work great. Like,
yes.
See, I'm still at the phase where I have to convince my wife that it's a worthwhile purchase.
Well, yeah.
Can you plug
She's
your
like,
external hard drive into it? That's the real question.
You cannot. Taylor will have to upgrade to like a wireless external hard drive.
Sorry, Taylor. That's a great one. I like Ubiquiti too. I've used their stuff for years, and then I don't know. I just don't have the mental capacity that you have, Eytan, for that stuff. It's like when I'm at home, I don't want to think about setting up a whole another like complex network environment. So I'm simple, man. I just have a Google little mesh Wi-Fi thing that.
Those also work.
Ubiquiti's worth that.
They work, yeah.
Yeah. For mine, I can't remember what I said last week, so I'll pick something completely different. Did I say Murderbot Diaries last week? If I didn't, I'll say it tomorrow. But anyway, I was recently in San Francisco, as one does, and I had a chance to ride on a Waymo car, which I had not done before. One of those driverless taxi things that got running around the streets of San Francisco.
The Waymo.
You know, wait, is it Waymo or is it Whammo? I don't remember pronouncing it.
I say Waymo.
Waymo? Okay. Waymo, driverless car. Probably told me when I was in the cab. I didn't pay attention. I was too scared. But it was pretty cool. My biggest hesitation was not, am I going to die? It was more, are people going to look at the car like stuck in an intersection or something and think bad thoughts about the person inside of it who was, so prideful they took this automated car. But it was really cool. It did great. I was very impressed. And while it's sort of somewhat useful in a city where you're expecting to take an Uber anyway, like the thought of doing that someday in my personal life is I go around the city doing my errands and stuff, that would be really killer. So probably will never be able to afford it, but if it ever comes my way here in Columbus, Ohio, I would look forward to that very much.
Yeah. I took one of those when we were in Phoenix in December, and it like blew me away. I was like, I went with my kids, and it's just one of those moments where you're like, oh my God, like this is kind of the future.
Mm-hmm.
It was just really incredible. Navigating parking lots, like places where you're like, oh my God, I'm not sure this is actually going to work. Yeah, but I don't know. I've had a few of those moments in my career, like, iPhone, we probably all had that. Right. When we're like, oh my God, like this is and that was definitely one for me.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
So one of these days, Taylor, I don't think they have them in Toronto because we'll all be at Edition. I'm assuming you're going, Eytan?
Yep, I'll be there, of course.
Cool. Actually, look forward to seeing you. All right. Well, I think we're at time. Any
Yes,
last
sir.
parting thoughts? We're good.
No,
Good
just
little
thank
finger
you,
thing.
Eytan, for
Wraps it up.
making
Yeah,
our lives better and easier all the time. We appreciate you.
Yeah,
very
my
much so.
pleasure. My pleasure.
And to everyone else, thanks for sticking with us. You have wasted another perfectly good hour you could have spent coding, listening to the Liquid Leak podcast. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you on the next one. Eytan, take care. Thanks for coming. Bye.